Chapter 111, a scene at Mr. Chichester's house. It was about 9:30 on the same evening that the above incidences occurred, when a double knock at the front door echoed through Mr. Chichester's dwelling in the immediate vicinity of the Cambridge Heath gate. Mr. Chichester himself was seated in an elegantly furnished parlor, sipping a glass of excellent Madeira, and pondering upon the best means of enjoying himself when he should have fingered the cash to obtain which he had perpetrated so diabolically an outrage against the confiding woman who had bestowed upon him her hand, and made him a partner in the enjoyment, if not the actual possession, of her fortune. The room was not large, but very comfortable, and at one end a pair of ample folding doors, now closed, afforded admission into a back parlor. A few moments after the echo of the double knock above mentioned, through the house a female servant entered and announced Mr. Tomlinson. Having requested the stockbroker to be seated, Mr. Chichester followed the servant into the hall and said to her in a low whisper, "When the other person comes, show him into the back parlor, as I may require to have some conversation with this gentleman before I introduce them to each other." This command being given, Mr. Chichester returned to the room where he had left Mr. Tomlinson. "You are before your time," said Chichester, pushing the decanter and a glass towards the stockbroker. "That looks like business." "I accidentally had an appointment upon some business in this neighbourhood," was the reply, "and when that matter was disposed of, I came straight hither." "We cannot repair to the asylum until 10 or half past," said Chichester, "because, as a precaution, the keeper has promised to call upon me presently and report whether my wife continues in the same docile mood as when he wrote to me yesterday afternoon." "I should be delighted to hear that you could settle this very unpleasant affair in some amicable way," returned Tomlinson, whose mind was still painfully excited by the interview which had taken place between him and his late cashier. "Impossible, my dear sir," said Chichester. "There is no way save the one chalked out. I hope that you do not hesitate to fulfill the agreement into which you entered with me." "The truth is, Mr. Chichester," said Tomlinson, "there is no man in London to whom a few £100 would prove as welcome as to me, especially as tomorrow I have to pay 200 to men who will not be very well pleased to experience a disappointment. It is true that I possess such a sum at my banker's, but I dare not draw out every shilling. My credit would be ruined." "So much the better reason for doing as I require of you," said Chichester, filling the glasses with Madeira. "True," observed Tomlinson, "but on the other hand, I tremble to take a false step. I fear to jeopardize myself by connivance at a direct conspiracy." "Psh!" said Chichester. "What is the use of compunction on the part of a man who stands in so much need of money as yourself?" Tomlinson was about to reply when a low knock at the front door fell upon his ears. "It is no one of any consequence," said Chichester. Then, as he refilled the glasses, he muttered to himself, "There is no use in introducing these men to each other unless this milk-and-water fool is quite agreeable to act." "Did you make an observation?" inquired the stockbroker. "I was observing that it was no one of any consequence, only some person for the servants, most probably. But let me ask now, seriously, Mr. Tomlinson, whether you feel disposed to proceed further in this matter or not." "Candidly speaking, I would rather not," was the reply. "Then you were wrong to give me a false hope of your aid and allow so much valuable time to elapse during which I might have found a broker less punctilious than you." "I regret that I should have caused this inconvenience," answered Tomlinson, "but I had resolved to perform my promise until about an hour ago, and I have even brought the necessary documents for the purpose." "Something very remarkable must have intervened to change your resolution," said Chichester contemptuously. "I am not superstitious," answered Tomlinson, "but I believe that a providential warning was conveyed to me." "A providential fiddlestick. Remember, Mr. Tomlinson, that by your unpardonable vacillation in this manner you will only prolong the incarceration of my wife." "And pray, who was responsible for that deed?" "We will not discuss this point," returned Chichester. "I did not ask you to become my mentor. At the same time," he added, sinking his voice, "every moment is important, for my wife is going mad in reality." "Then release her at once," said Tomlinson. "Never until she signs the deed." "Release her," continued Tomlinson, "and then bring her with you to my office where she can make the transfer." "Are you mad yourself? Do you suppose she would ever put pen to paper if she were once liberated in that manner? I am surprised at your ignorance, vexed at your cowardice. You have not acted like a man of business, nor as a man of the world. It was for you to accept or decline my proposal, not to deceive me by these changes and shiftings of inclination. Come, sir, once and for all, pluck up your courage. Remember the 200 pounds which you say must be paid tomorrow to the 2 men who will not be put off, and the settlement of which debt will so materially embarrass your finances. My mind is made up, Chichester, answered Tomlinson firmly. And what is your decision? I shall beg to withdraw from the transaction. And Tomlinson rose to depart. But at the same moment, the folding doors communicating with the inner room were thrown open, and a man with a cadaverous countenance stood forward. You shall not forfeit your word in this respect, exclaimed the individual, whom Tomlinson immediately recognized to be the body snatcher, engaged in the affair of Michael Martin. What does this man do here? Asked Tomlinson in a faint voice. What do I do here? What do I do everywhere? Cried the man with a diabolical laugh. Tell me the secret plot, the cunning intrigue. I just figured it out. Oh! Okay, now I have to read and find out if I'm right. Guys, I think I know what's going on. Tell me the secret plot, the cunning intrigue, the scheme of villainy to which Anthony Tidkins, surnamed the Resurrection Man, is a stranger. But little did I think when I called upon you this morning, little did I imagine when I met you again this evening, that you were the person enlisted by Mr. Chichester in the affair which we have now in hand. It would appear, then, that you are acquainted with each other, said Chichester, laughing heartily at the confusion manifested by the stockbroker in the presence of the Resurrection Man. Why, what devilry was it that brought you two together? Whether I keep Mr. Tomlinson's secret, or whether I proclaim it to you and everyone else whom I know, until the whole town rings with the circumstance, is a matter for him to decide, said the Resurrection Man, and with admirable coolness he helped himself to a bumper of Madeira. If I pay you 200 pounds as agreed upon, exclaimed Tomlinson, what more would you require of me? I require that you remain faithful to your promise to Mr. Chichester. I require that you fulfill the service which you have undertaken to perform in his behalf, was the resolute reply. And in what way does the business regard you, you who acknowledge yourself to be a resurrectionist? Certainly I am, and the most skillful in London, no other excepted, exclaimed Tidkins with a satanic chuckle. But that does not prevent me from turning madhouse keeper or anything else when opportunity offers. What, you are the keeper of the asylum in which this gentleman's wife is imprisoned? Exclaimed the stockbroker in a tone of the most profound astonishment. Yes, he is indeed, said Chichester, and a better keeper could not have been found. So now you know all about that point. And Mr. Tomlinson will be good enough to accompany me to my house, observed the Resurrection Man. You, Mr. Chichester, can follow us at a little distance. It looks suspicious for 3 people to walk together. I really must decline, began Tomlinson, trembling from head to foot as the warning voice of Michael Martin seemed to ring in his ears. One word more, Mr. Tomlinson, said the Resurrection Man. I am a person of determined spirit and resolution. I never stick at trifles myself, and I don't choose others with whom I am connected to balk me in my designs when I can prevent them. Now, either come with me and do what is required of you, or as sure as there is breath in your body, I will deliver up a certain person to the police and stand the consequences myself. I beg of you, I implore you. Psh, said Chichester, this is child's play. Child's play indeed, thundered the Resurrection Man in a terrible voice, but I will put an end to it. Come, sir, hesitate another moment, and that old man is lost. I will accompany you, answered the stockbroker. Then in an undertone he added, but God knows how unwillingly. The Resurrection Man seized him by the arm and conducted him out of the house. 5 minutes afterwards, Chichester followed in the same direction. Okay, this is the mystery of the murder house. He's keeping Chichester's wife down in the lower section of their house that the rattlesnake keeps getting closer and closer to, and is torturing her. That's why they're hearing screams. That's why they're hearing, all of the suffering. That's what's going on. She's been down there all this time because he's a horrible person. Oh, okay, there's got to be a way to save her from this dude. Come on, Tomlinson. Come on. All right, let's see what happens in the next chapter.